regular meeting of the School District of Belleville Board of Education to order at 6:33 p.m. Can I get a roll call, please, Marion?
Meg Anthony.
Here.
Alan Charles. Steve Elliott.
Here.
Ryan Kubley.
Here.
Marion Binney. Here. Katie Worley.
Here.
Beth Yours.
Here.
7 present.
All right, I will entertain a motion for tonight's agenda approval.
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made by Marion, seconded by Ryan. Any further discussion or comments? Hearing none, we'll take it up for a vote. All those in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0. All right, we have no public comments today, so we will move ahead to district highlights.
Control F and live, would that be nice? All right, good evening. We're going to start out with our district highlights with state wrestling. Am I on? Okay. With state wrestling, so Trey and Blake are here along with their coaches. So Pete Swenson, do you want to take it over, Pete? And I can kind of slide through the photos as you go. You guys had a very successful season, which brought your wrestlers to state, but I'll let you give the details.
According to Blake, I spoke too much last year at the meeting, so I will defer to him. No? Okay. Yeah, it was a wonderful season. It was in many aspects successful in many ways. Just having many come out for wrestling, growing the girls program, as well as highlighting the season with having a state champ. All around a wonderful season. I don't know. Belleville hasn't had a state champ since 1987. The program at Sugar River had a state champ. The last one was it's Cole Schmidt back in 2008, and he was a New Glarus student. But Blake being the first one since Tony Newton, who graduated in 1987. So many years in the making, and can't say anything else. The state tournament just went. I think if you talk to Blake as planned, he knew that he was probably the favorite, even though he was the third seed, and he went out in every match and controlled every match and tried to make it a little less stressful on the coaches watching the matches. So it was fun to see that. And for Trey to go, Trey missed the podium narrowly. He went 2-2, winning 2 matches, lost 2 matches. Would have placed in the top 8 if they put the top 8 at the podium. And what's remarkable about Trey, may not know a lot about his history, but he's had to overcome a lot of health problems. Back in middle school, there was talk about him not able to ever participate again, and coming full back around. Trey has always been one of the hardest workers, but this year he's had multiple meets where physically we've had to carry him off the mat for him to recover and get back his feeling and coordination, and then he would go out and he would do it again. Many kids, if that happened the first time, probably would have stopped and never done it again, but this is a guy that would do it every weekend. So can't say too much about that. It's just what you look for, the way these kids will fight and do whatever they can to help their team.
So Trey and Blake, if you like, you can have an opportunity just to tell the board about your experience, or you can also describe how your coach changed his dress code from the earlier matches to later on, as you can see up here. So either one of those things, if you're willing to come up and just share your experience, we'd appreciate it.
Well, I don't know. I like that they, the finals match, they dress up. They go out there and they show they care. They dress nice. See Blake, the rest.
That is for every
So would you guys be willing to share just your favorite part about the weekend? I mean, aside from how you finished, is what your most memorable moment?
I'd say my favorite part was probably after winning my match in the semis, because after that I knew I was going to win the state finals. I knew I was going to win it, so I just had to make it there. That was probably the best part, was knowing I made it.
Probably my first match, I got a pin. Set the tone for me. I thought it was going to go a little better than it did, but it's still nice just being able to say that I did something. Probably my
There were a couple of high school records as well. Do you mind sharing what those were?
Uh, Career wins record, and then the first 50 wins in a season. One 172.
What does the future hold?
Next year I'm going to wrestle at Forest House.
Congratulations.
I'm just going. No wrestling. I'm like,
I have a question for both of you. I've got two young boys. They're 5 and 7, and my 7-year-old is excited to start wrestling. Any words of advice for new youngins that are interested in joining the program?
just stick with it, even if like you have something goes on, if you get hurt, stick with it. Always look better. High school is the most fun wrestling. Do it.
I'd say that it's an individual sport, so like if you lose, maybe you can feel it a little bit more, but like you just gotta learn that it's still a sport. You gotta have fun. You can't take it hard.
A few weeks ago, I had a chance to talk with Pete during a practice, and I'm always amazed anytime I watch the nuance and level of skill that's involved. And I remind him that I had a good friend who was a wrestler, and I learned very quickly to never pick on a wrestler. Is that it'll come back and haunt you.
I think I'm sure for both, but the comment was made about Trey at the celebration, the way that you guys carried yourselves, especially after a loss. There were a couple different people that made comments. And I think there were comments from other people unassociated with Belleville in the crowd that also commented about the way you guys carried yourself. And I think that was really impressive.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Dan Endress and Scott Fate, too. Those guys have been remarkable. Sometimes I may not be able to get to the practices, right away, just to schedule them. Dan has been with me now like 8 years, helping the middle school, and then getting into the high school, and be able to share this with him, have him, has been remarkable. And even in the added on, to be able to do it with your own sons, add Riker into it as well, who made it to state last year but couldn't make the meeting because he was out golfing. It's just been, I feel like it's not even been a job. It's something that you get to enjoy. Like, you almost look forward to getting through the day so you can go and spend some time doing it. So I do want to give those guys, the assistant coaches, they need a round of applause. They did such a great job.
Riker, who's keeping track of the golfing, right? Our other district highlight, and many of you experienced this personally, was the solo ensemble back on February 22nd. We had there's a much more detailed summary from Steph Meyer in the notes, but you can see those that qualified to the state competition EW Platteville next month. We have quite a few moving on, and also just has some nice pictures that were taken of the individuals and the ensemble as well. So it was a really, I'm not sure how often we host. Yeah, every 6 years. So it's a pretty big opportunity to be able to host. And we did a wonderful job of being that site this time. So thank you all for your help. And I'm a little sad because I took a very similar picture during their practice and uploaded it, and clearly it was user error. It didn't make it to Facebook leading up to it, but I'm glad we were able to get this shot. Pretty exciting finish to the month of February. So really a great month for us, and we have a few things queued up already for next month too. So we're excited for district highlights.
All right, thank you. Next up is correspondence.
We have no district level correspondence this month.
Any further questions or comments from the board before moving on? All right, next item up is the approval of the consent agenda, and I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Ryan, seconded by Alan. Any further discussion or comments? Hearing none, we'll take it up for a vote. All in favor of approval of the consent agenda, say yes.
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 All opposed, say no. Motion passes 7-0. All right, next on our agenda are reports. So we'll start with our student representatives this evening.
Yeah, so over the past month, we've been waiting to gather more info because of the scheduling season, and we want to try to avoid confusing students with all this extra information and stuff. But later this week, I believe we plan to send out a Google form, and Riker has his video that we're gonna show students, and then we'll get some more feedback from staff and students, and then next board meeting we'll be able to present that with you.
So this is just a video that I made, outlining like the purposes of this waiver form and then like the intended benefits that students will have. So it's just like a 2-minute little video, but this will be going live Wednesday. We hope this week. We're gonna wait for about a week, get all that info, and then have another meeting, talk about it, and then hopefully be able to present it to you next meeting, like Sarai said. So yeah, just hit play.
Hi, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the proposed change to get PE credit for participating in sports. So the purpose of this PE waiver, it will allow students to substitute a half of the required 1.5 PE credits with an additional class. The class must be an additional math, science, English, social studies, or health education class beyond the needed graduation requirements. And this would benefit students who want to take an additional class, such as an AP, honors, or dual credit class, but can't because of physical education credit requirements or a scheduling conflict. Now, the requirements for this PE waiver: the sport that the student participates in must be a WIAA sanctioned sport. So unfortunately, that does not include bowling at this time. The sport participation can take place anytime in the student's sophomore or junior year, as well as during the first and second semester sports seasons of their senior year. The student must not miss more than 2 weeks due to illness or injury for the credit to count. The student must not be academically ineligible or in violation of any athletic code to participate in this program and get their credit. The class the student is taking in lieu of the physical education class must be taken in the same year as the sport participated in. And lastly, the student must pass the class they're taking in replacement of the physical education class, otherwise that credit will not count. Soon there will be a Google form sent out, so please let us know how you feel on this. Attached to that will be the official PE waiver form, so you can have a closer look. Thank you. Have a Wildcat Day.
Who helped? Did you receive any help?
Hi, everybody.
Language together.
Today
or
we're gonna be-
put the stipulations, or
Yes, Miss Way. So New Glarus had proposed this, and I believe they're currently using a program like this.
Sure.
And so when she came over, she kind of had a copy of a similar form, and she just kind of altered it and changed it to kind of fit our school. And I was able to take that and just look through it, and then take that information and put it on there to make it so students more be able to more understand it. And then I was also able to interview Mr. Nelson because he did a similar program for Sheen. So I had a similar information from him as well, just to compile all that, hopefully get the accurate information. Thank you.
Thanks, Riker. Thanks, Raya.
All right, thank you. Up next, we have our district administrators report.
All right, thank you. We're going to have this is going to be that oscillation back and forth between athletics and arts. So another piece from we have one donation for this month, a donation for our music department, focus on jazz music, senior night, etc. So kind of going back to that we talked about our last topic. We had a conference championship. The first time, I had it written down. I want to say 2010, 11. Is that right? Did I do that right? So the first outright conference championship, very exciting. The girls made it pretty deep into the postseason before being out, but pretty exciting opportunity for the girls to win a conference championship. You were all greeted by the Wizard of Oz, the cast of 4 characters that are there. So really excited for their presentations coming up this week. I remember when I was looking for this position last year, it was Seussical the musical. So I'm glad to be able to be part of that. They've been working very hard and have reminded me of all the upgrades they would like to see. So we'll get to those later. Referendum mailer number 2 went out. Referendum mailer number 3 is about to go out. One thing that some questions have come up that we continue, really our focus in all of the downfall of any mailer is a staff, right? And so we do have the QR code there, which is really intended to bring people back to the website because we intend for information to be most alive there. For example, when we look at the percentage of staff that we might have to be cut for the following year, that depends on a lot of factors, including if we have a retirement, if we have a resignation, which we have actually learned someone that might be resigning. And all those things, we look at the total cost of those people versus what the budget would be. If it didn't get passed, and that really does affect those numbers as well. So we've tweaked some of that language. We continue to do that, but really the source of truth, so to speak, is really at that QR code. We also we'll be putting up some yard signs just in our yard, just to remind people to vote. We're not going to put them out anywhere else beyond there, so that people just know that we're just doing that reminder to vote. Those will be. So look for mailer number 3 to be coming. Some of the feedback we received also did say that the tax calculator for 100,000, sometimes, just making that jump to multiply by whatever factor to get to your value. So the next one will have a home value of 250K and 425,000. 425 being the average, as the village told us, and 250 was, I think, the swaying price that we heard at one of at the library, right? So we're gonna have those 2 on the next flyer. So those listening sessions, we are trying to respond both in terms of our presentation and in terms of the documents. Some upcoming events is we have the tours on Thursday, and we just keep telling people, please come to the tours. They're great. We have one more community plan presentation, which is a week from Thursday, or a week from tomorrow. Thank you all to those of you that have come to the other presentations. It's really great to have you present. And I know I sent out the email on Friday about upcoming presentations, and we've now added, or events. We've added we're gonna have a greeting table for both bingo night on Friday night and for the elementary concert. We'll have a station for when people come in there as well. So we'll just keep providing opportunities to get people information. And there is a potential visit from Tom McCarthy, and I think, Alan, you've been reaching out a little bit about, because school finance is kind of like trying to grab mercury, right? It's just as soon as you think you've got it, it takes off on you. And there's an opportunity that we have, and we're interested in in what you all think about a potential for Tom maybe to come to the district. Do you want to speak to that just a little bit?
I mean, so he's mentioned that he's willing to come out and do a presentation. He sent a sample presentation that has a lot of additional information about how not really in depth on public school finance, but easier. might be a benefit to having them come out. Just have an additional resource beyond their presenting similar information. So it's really up to the board if they think we should. I think I would just connect them with you.
Yeah, I think we can try to
Yeah.
get something pretty quickly. One of the things that, and I remember seeing Dr. Thayer's letter to about the referendum in New Glarus. You could have just erased New Glarus almost and put Belleville in every little spot. These messages are the same, and I think what Alan you brought up was just the chance to hear from another voice. And the more different voices you hear, you start to hear similar messages. We'll reach out to Tom, and he's he cuts straight to it. He doesn't. He doesn't go. I appreciate the way he can get right to the point. We'll do that. We'll reach out as quickly as we can. We do have that spring break piece coming in the middle, but as you know, you can see even here we have a tour event the day before, which was not originally the intent, but remember we had to close school on the original date, which was so we're sneaking one in there right after the vacation. Not only do we have a referendum on April 1st, we also have a school board election. We have 3 positions. We do have 3 candidates at the moment. I don't know if anyone will be written in, but just a reminder for everyone to vote. This is actually what our yard sign in our yard will look like. Just encouraging people to vote and taking civic action. And if you have questions about other information, we continue to keep our QR code. At which point someone said to me, well, how are they going to be able to QR code while they're driving by? And I just said, well, it's there. Maybe they'll stop. So anyway, same QR code that we keep passing. And then upcoming events, we do have negotiations this week. And I like to bring up, because that's really tied in with the referendum as well. If you remember, when we talked about the models for the referendum, we talked about a staff compensation model. We kept reminding people that that's not where negotiations are occurring, but we did meet in official negotiations with BEA before we went to the task force. We are now going to go back into negotiations to make sure we do the proper protocol and to make sure we follow all those steps. So I just want to be clear with people as we looked at those models that that we are following those steps. We've been very careful. We checked it with our legal counsel as well in terms of each step to make sure that we were doing things in accordance so that we weren't violating any statutory requirements. Additionally, we do have the Wall of Fame meeting. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. At that meeting, we're going to be looking at preparing for the event at the end of May, as well as looking forward a year and talking just about criteria and any other bylaws and things we want to have in place. A variety of issues have come up by the team, and I think they're really right to have those conversations. And again, we're looking at facility plans, communicators, policy, and communications committees coming up as well. So the last piece on communications, and then we're rescheduling wellness. We realized it was scheduled during, everyone said it was okay, the time we scheduled for, and then it was sitting right on top of conferences. And if anyone's never experienced Thursday night of elementary conferences, that is not the time to be gone for another meeting. So a lot of energy in that building, so you don't want to miss that. Back to the communications, we got a lot from key communicators, from the communications committee, several, about making videos. We reached out to a few people and they were like, eh. And then finally I just grabbed my phone, put together 10 different topics that tied right in with our presentations, filmed those all off today. I'm being judged by my peers, probably as they're watching them now, about the quality of those. It's very hard to seem animated on that topic when you're just standing in front of a camera. So a little forgiveness is all I'm asking for. But anyway, so we are going to try to roll out 10 different videos, all under a minute except for one, which is just a hair over a minute. Just a little snapshots, but really tying back into what you're hearing during the presentation. That being said, I'm now thinking about 18 other things I could have recorded. So we're going to try to push those out every other day for the last part, just to make sure people have the information. And we heard a lot from folks about, especially I met with the realtors last week, about using social media, because when we send those emails out, those are really only going to the people that we have email addresses to. So you're going to see that push out to our social media accounts. That's it.
Sounds great. Thank you for your report. Up next is our Athletics, Activities, and Community Education Recreation Director's report.
So we just finished this week. The all winter sports are now done. You can go to the next slide. The first will be boys basketball. In boys basketball this year, we had 29 total students out, which means we did have a JV2 team, which was awesome. Let all our freshmen and some sophomores have a lot more chance to develop as basketball players. I didn't fill in on this current version, but I do have the summary at the bottom. They finished fourth in conference with a 4-6 record. We are graduating 8 seniors. Oh, thank you. We were seeded 7th in the WIAA regional bracket, which is an automatic seeding bracket for those that do not know. Right now, it's only basketball and football that have that. They are looking at doing it for all sports instead of currently the other sports like soccer. The 17 coaches get together in a meeting and they vote. I actually run that meeting for boys soccer, which is kind of fun, but also there's some bias in there. So the automatic seeding is good, but also some coaches will tell you it's also bad. But we were seeded 7th, which means we hosted number 10 Westby at home on that Tuesday night, which we did end up winning. We went on to face Darlington in the regional semifinal. That was on Friday night. We did end up losing that game by about 20. It was a close game all the way through, and then towards the end, it kind of got hand for us. But our boys fought hard, and then Darlington actually went on to win the regional title on that Saturday. So the team that beat us is still alive for that date. This was Drew Schrader's first year as a coach. I would consider it successful. Throughout the season, the best that we could do. The next is girls basketball. Girls basketball had a huge jump in numbers. We had 23 total athletes. We had been struggling in years past to have a JV team. This is the first year we had a full JV team without sharing girls on both levels. Fortunately, that coincided with every other team in our conference struggling for JV numbers, so it was kind of tough to get all those games this year in for JV. We got a lot, but it was difficult when some of the teams didn't have a JV. They did finish, you saw earlier, as conference champions with an outright record of 9-1 in conference, and they went 19-5 overall during the season, with their losses all being to teams that were either ranked in Division 5 or 4, or at the time, or had been to state the year prior. We had a very tough out-of-conference schedule. They're graduating 2 seniors this year, and in the postseason they got a bye. They were the number 3 seed in this region. We won at home, so we had a bye in the first round. Our regional semifinal, we beat Darlington girls at home. We went on to face Pecatonica Argyle in Argyle that Saturday. Ended up beating them by 3. Very, very stressful game, but it was awesome that we won that one. And then we moved on to the sectional semifinal against Cuba City. Cuba City did get second place in state last year, and they did not graduate anybody. So we ran into a very talented team. They actually did advance to state on Saturday, but all our girls put up a fight with them. We were down about 12 at halftime. Got away from us in the second half a little bit, but our girls should be proud about how they the numbers being that high speaks to the culture of that program, where they're going. Wrestling, you did get more information from the guys here, so I won't spend too much time on that one. But our numbers are good again. We are looking, the wrestling coaches reached out to myself, Monticello, and New Glarus to try to figure out how do we get more kids from New Glarus and Monticello involved. Right now, it's mostly Belleville kids. So we're going to try to figure out a way to combat that. And then also we're trying to get, we had good numbers with more girls this year than we've ever had. But again, we're trying to grow that to a point where we could have even more. We had a girls wrestler this year almost qualify for state, which is really, really, really cool. Nora Christensen was 1 point away from qualifying for state, which is crazy. And she's a junior, so they're looking to build on that. But the guys that came up here have a bunch of conference, individual conference champions. Did have a lot of sectional qualifiers, including the 2 that were up here, the Adora, Payson, and Riker also all qualified for sectionals, which is extremely hard to do in the area of Wisconsin that we're in. Lincoln Trade did go to state, and then to have an individual finish first at state is an accomplishment that is extremely hard to do. That's why the last time it's been done here in Belleville was 40 years ago. So it's very, very cool that we had that, and hopefully we can continue to grow that program. And then talking about middle school wrestling, this is how you do grow that program. Our middle school wrestling
Currently, it is a little bit smaller than it has been in the past. We had 13 total wrestlers in it. Again, that's why we're meeting with the other two communities to figure out, hey, how do we get more of your youth into wrestling and not just the kids currently? That hopefully should help us grow. And you'll see later on in this presentation or in the report that we are moving middle school sports to community education. I'll hit that later on, but just to hit it briefly here, that allows students or just youth in our community that aren't our students but may live in Belleville, so like homeschool students, they can now participate in the middle school sports. So it moves it out of just being school based to community ed based. But other than that, just opens it up. Middle school girls basketball, our numbers here have been pretty much the same throughout the years. They're getting a little bit smaller, and actually the grade coming up is even smaller than seventh graders, so we might have a little issue there next year. But we're going to try to combat that with convincing some girls to go out for basketball. Both teams had one team, one seventh grade team, one eighth grade team, and we are the only new change that you'll see for middle school girls basketball is we added two Middleton teams, Glacier and Cromrie, have now joined our little co-op of Glacier, Cromrie, Mount Horeb, Monroe, Wisconsin Heights, Glarus, and us. So they're going to get more games. So it's just going to help us that's for basketball, volleyball, track and field, all of our middle school sports. We've added those to our little co-op. So they'd reached out and asked, could we join? Like, what you guys are doing is great with these 6 schools. Can we get in there too? So we have people to play, and sure. So they've been added to our grouping. Middle school boys basketball, we did actually this year for 7th grade have 2 levels of 7th grade teams. So we played some games in the small gym, which was fun and also crowded. But it was fun, and we're planning on doing that again next year, depending on how many kids go out. It was a little ambitious this year with 15. We never had actually 15 there. There was always sickness, always injury. So we really only had 12 or 13, so some of those boys were playing a lot minutes. So we'll probably be ambitious again because you do get more opportunity when you have 2 teams, but we'll see when those numbers get there. Again, the 2 Middleton teams are also added to the boys' side here. And then talking about Fund 80, we've shifted it from Fund 10 to Fund 80. Again, this will just allow more students more opportunities to participate in what we're doing here. We're also, and I don't know, we haven't picked an actual season yet, but we've actually put aside some funds now for those of you that were at basketball games, those dancers, the cheer team that we had. We're looking at starting a competitive dance team. So we have that budgeted for middle school for next year, and then if we get enough interest, enough individuals signed up for it, we're going to move that into the high school level if we have enough interest. I mean, yeah, everything's driven by interest. So.
Like that too. I checked with Eric, and this is less than 5% of the funding budget. It's not a big amount.
No.
Pretty small amount.
Correct. I
It
think
just changes access.
Exactly. And hopefully that dance program, I thought they were wonderful camps that get enough girls. The hurdles they will come into are if you do it during football season, you come at volleyball, and if you do it during winter season, you come at volleyball again, but also girls basketball and girls wrestling now. And there's other swimming, there's gymnastics, there's other things girls may be doing that also might. Hopefully it can happen, but there will be. And then we are, and honestly, it feels not natural now, but we are streaming on Huddle instead of YouTube. That was a huge change we had earlier in the year. If you have access to these, actually, if you click those links, it shocks me every time. It does highlights for us, which is so cool. So if you just go to the Huddle site and scroll down, you can watch any highlight from any game. It will, if you missed the boys playing Waterloo, which is one of the ones up there, you click it and it will just have like highlights from Waterloo. Does it pick specific ones? No. Does it probably pick the coolest ones? No. But it does still have like it'd be like Adam Can with a steal, and it will show him stealing the ball. It'll be like Ice Babbler with a 3, it'll show him hitting a 3. It's pretty cool in that regard. But then if a coach or a class like Wildcat Media puts something together, there's an individual in Mr. Beanash's Wildcat Media that put together. They clipped all the 3s together for the most 3s in history, and then that's like a highlight that all those girls can just watch, which is extremely cool. So it streaming on Huddle has been seamless. It's been nice. We've been able to do broadcasts through it. It's been a lot easier for Dave and Chris bring the equipment down. It's a lot less to do because it comes straight through the production truck, which is on the Mac that we got. Wildcat Media, so it's been really for streaming. So we're gonna stay on. for the foreseeable. Our spring track dates, our spring sports dates have really got here fast. Track started today, softball next Monday, girls soccer, baseball the Monday after, boys golf the Monday after that, and the middle school track will start the Monday after that Monday. So they all already rolling. Track was outside today, which did not happen many March 10th, but they were outside today, which is awesome. Their first meet is coming up here next Thursday. They go to Platteville for an indoor meet. They'll also go there on that Saturday. The only reason we go to those meets are to attempt to qualify for indoor state at Whitewater, which will week after that. The first outdoor meets. Could do one. It stays. And then community education is through Banco. This has been a lot better as well as it's progressed through the months here. Middle school sports there, but adult gym is running, walking buddies is running, yoga is running, Sunday volleyball is running, winter volleyball is running, swim lessons are going to be using Vanco for sign up. You go to the Vanco link now, you can see the swim lessons are there. They're not open yet because we haven't sent out that communication. We're not ready for that yet, but you can see that they're there. I haven't put the nice little images there with them, but there will be images there. So thank God. But the cool thing about Vanco is they can sign up and pay right then and there. The winter co-ed volleyball tournament had over 60 people here. They had over 18 teams. I believe they ended up saying they had, and they all signed up through this system, which is awesome. For yoga, we have over 20 people in that class. Only 4 now are coming in to sign up with the person. The other 16 are signing up through Vanco, which is awesome. The musical that's coming up, we're actually selling. It's not through community education, but we're using Vanco, so we're helping with that side of things. People are purchasing those tickets online as well. Honestly, more successful than I believe. So it's been good. That is my last slide, I believe. Yes. Any questions? So I have 2 families that have reached out to me that I know are homeschooled, but that's a great question. I will have to figure out a way to communicate that with those that don't. I mean, obviously, they're not going to get the school funded or school communications because they're not a part of our school. I know through a couple of youth coaches had asked me about it previously, and maybe that may be the easiest ways to communicate with some of the, like your Mesa teams for soccer, or your YPL teams for basketball. Like they'll know the kids that are associated that just aren't allowed to do it right now that would be able to, but there still might be.
Yeah, pardon my ignorance on this, but I thought like 7 or 8 years ago the legislature passed a law that required schools to allow homeschool students to participate in school
If they're within our
district.
correct.
So,
Or-
is
so this
the
would be
intent
like
of
if
this
they're
that
not,
will allow students that are outside of the district to participate, or just
if they are, if you're school choicing in, and I guess if you are, I'm trying to think of, that's a great question.
okay? So
I
it might
had
allow
a
it.
friend in high school, middle school.
It just, I think it just broadens the opportunity for everyone. There
Yeah.
aren't any exceptions out
But
anymore.
the example I would give is I had a family in I was there in high school at, got to high school, they started school choice to Lodi, but they weren't actually in the Lodi school district. They were in the Madison area, so those kids were out. So it really only, it's an example for not kids, but it allows, it still helps specific, once in really odd cases.
I can get clarification too, because I think it still does. You are not required to have someone from outside your district community. The resident school students should be more clear, enrolled school students into it. And this does broaden, and we might be talking, the thing you're talking about might actually be the same.
But
I can get clarification for you.
and you're correct, like in the WIAA high school sort of thing, we homeschool students are allowed. So we've had some in our track programs and cross country programs. All they have to do is they have to go through we have to make sure they're through the homeschool system, that they're that homeschool system and registered through there, and you also have to verify it's like PI 126 and also their address as well. And then I have to turn in like their transcripts and every other. But their homeschool students are allowed to be.
Actually, that is the difference. Actually, is the middle school program is not WIA.
Correct.
And that is right. So that was the thing when you were presenting earlier is that this falls outside of the rules of that governing body.
Are we going to have a different fee structure then? If we have students that are not, or non-students, non-Belleville students participating in our athletic programs, and also like academic eligibility and other things that typically specifically are a concern?
We've talked about the academic side of things. We're going to keep those stats close though, because we want to make sure we're holding to the high standards. Now, if they're from, and that's where the gray area comes in, especially with the homeschool students. Is I've had last year we had a homeschool student competing in one of our sports, and the parent was sending me their grade checks. I don't have any say on a homeschooler's grade, which makes it or attendance requirements, right? Like they could say they were there all day at school, and for all we know, they could be at Six Flags and coming back from their basketball. Like
But you're living within the structure there.
correct. We're following the rules the correct way, but there's always a little bit of gray area.
What's your first half of the question? You had two parts.
Well, the first part was that at least the high school level, this is already essentially required. Like we're required to allow
Correct.
homeschool students to participate, but they have to be district residents.
Yes.
This program will not require them to be district residents, I'm guessing.
No, I think it still does, but because we're not under WI, they are not guaranteed that option to be in the program.
We would definitely have it to where we like it to be district residents, but in that rare case I had brought up, if that's something that happened where they have family in the district, like I have a sister that's playing basketball right now. I really like middle school basketball, but I'm a middle school student. That could be, we could make exceptions for that. WIA would not. High school, we cannot make that exception. We will be able to now.
Was the second part of that question, Steve, cost related?
It is possible. Okay. I mean, obviously we're shifting this to Fund 80, so it's not going to. It's a little bit of a cost savings for the district funded out. But I presume we're going to have a fee structure.
Oh, that was the
that
second
might be a
part.
little
Yes,
bit
the fees.
different than what we've had in the past. 'Cause I don't know how
But
much
again,
fee
you'd be
structure-
back with resident fees, just like
Yeah.
someone that lives within the community is still considered resident. So they still have to pay the same fee. Student that was.
And I think you mentioned this earlier, Jim, but what's the percentage of like funding essentially that would be getting out of Fund 80 now?
Yeah, this is typically our middle school program is somewhere between 10 and 12,000, right? And of the overall middle school, or the overall Fund 80 is about 250,000. So we're under 5%.
I had a general question about. I know we have a sports boosters club, and maybe I don't know how associated that is with what with the district itself, but like with the sports boosters stuff, still, do they support middle school stuff now, and would that still? So they don't do. There would be no change to
No.
what the sports boosters do. Okay.
No, they don't.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
You.
All right, thanks, Zach.
Zach.
All right, next up we have the CISA 2 report.
So our board of control meeting was on Tuesday. Jason. Audit. And then Dan gave his report. He talked about the crews that were at the state convention. Really successful. They try and talk to all the districts. He was really pleased. Feedback. And then he's trying to keep everyone informed about and then he mentioned that at the March CAC meeting, which is the professional advisor, for and and then Mitchell Lilly, who is the executive director of marketing and communications, reported that the log of services will be published in March. And I'll bring copies of that. Copy of the and then he also mentioned that 52 teacher applications for this full scholarship. And we just wrapped up. Next They should licensure academy. About that. And a couple of the reports that Dan provided the board of control members were updates on Act 10. What the immigration and customs enforcement, what if they and then we had the Jefferson County and Western Should Start Policy meeting. Governance screener, Ezra training, which is eligibility, recruitment, selection, enrollment, and attendance. Lots of training. Start. She sent sending out a parent satisfaction. There was some discussion. Next meeting is Tuesday. So her poll, I don't know how many for scholarships or students, teachers, superintendents. But so the students, teachers, they fill out the forms. It's reviewed. See scholarships. I'm not sure how many. It's been a couple. But it's like it's really interesting to see the different schools.
Marion, are you planning on attending the PAC meeting in March? Rutland Harbor? Yeah. Is that something that anyone is open to go to, or do you have to?
Meeting, that's superintendent. Yeah, that was last Friday. That's when,
Oh, that happened already? Okay.
and that was Mount Horeb.
And I don't think we've been invited.
That was pretty, it was just,
It's super.
it was interesting, very interesting. Insights that they shared. You know,
Is that something that we'll be able to discuss or learn more about what was shared or the takeaways from that?
yeah, and I wonder actually if it was even recorded. Let me check on that.
Yeah.
It was, I'm reminded how short of a time it was since that occurred. And there were a few moments during that where they had to pause. So let me look at that because I know they did have it on for people that couldn't make it there in person. And I suspect that it was recorded. So I'll see if that's available.
All right, thank you, everybody. That concludes reports. Next up, we'll move on to discussion possible action items, the first of which is the 2025 Wall of Fame inductee.
I'll make a motion to approve Bob Gentili and Tim Stottleman as the 2025 Wildcat Wall of Fame inductees.
Second.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by Marion. We'll open that up for discussion. Don't give me that look, Alan.
Yeah, that was a good race there. So the committee has been meeting since November. Ryan, Marion, and Beth are part of that. They've been working through a lot of issues in voting, and there's a big debate between 2 and 3 award winners, and it worked out this time that 2 was fitting. But that group, again, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be wrestling a little with that later about the future for the Wall of Fame. So the Wall of Fame inductee takes place on May 30th, and the first person, and do a little reading right now. And I was able to speak to both Bob and Tim today, but we're going to read about them for a moment. It's always my favorite part is usually what other people have to say about them. So Bob Gentili, Bob has been an integral part of Belleville schools and the village community for over 30 years. He has served several roles impacting countless students, athletes, and families. He's been dedicated to his craft as an educator, mentor, and coach, and the spirit of leadership and service that he embodies as well. So his roles in Belleville, he's been a middle school social studies teacher for 31 years, head boys soccer coach, assistant girls soccer coach, varsity football coach, varsity track coach, varsity softball coach, student council advisor, yearbook advisor, youth soccer coach, youth baseball coach, bus driver, turkey drop volunteer. Don't forget about that one because I know he was big with that with Jane Delorme, and involved in middle school tailgates and community events, chess club advisor. He organized tours to DC for school and Big Brother's Little Sister volunteer. He's been recognized as United States Soccer Team Ethics and Sportsmanship Award a couple of years ago. Coach of the Week distinction, Sugar River Raiders Sportsmanship Award. He's been featured in NEA Today, We Act Magazine, the Wisconsin State Journal, and other news outlets. He's been published author from Teacher to Teacher. He's led the Quilt to Hopes unit, featured on national television, and is recognized for his leadership in shaping student athletes into responsible, compassionate adults. The kids were able to, the Young Samaritans, were, when I say kids, were able to pull some good quotes from Bob. He's known for asking his players, did you get better today? He encourages perseverance with everything we do in life. We want to get better. Lives by the principle, it's not about being the best, it's about being better than you were yesterday, and keep hope alive. I visit with Bob from time to time, I visit his classroom, and during supervision of lunchtime recess, which is always most interesting. I usually walk away with knowing something more about the world, usually with a little bit of humor. Whether it's we have a shared family history in Madison Edgewood, to something as funny as the story I shared last month when he got lured into coaching track early in his career, thinking that spring sports outside were a warm adventure. So Bob is our first nominee for you to approve as an inductee. The second is Tim Stottleman. And again, Tim has been a lifelong community member. He's a business innovator in our community, youth coach, active community member, and a father of 3. So he grew up and went to school in Belleville. His father was a cheesemaker at that factory on A and PB, just north of here. Sent his 3 kids to Belleville, and he's had a really positive impact on the lives of children in the community as a youth coach for soccer, football, and basketball. He's been part of all things Belleville his whole life, and after he became chief financial officer at Findorf, he still chose to remain in Belleville and help the community. You've seen his work recently with Johnny O's and the impact on that family, John and the family, and the restaurant as a whole, and giving a new look to downtown on Main Street, a place for people to go to. He plans to open other businesses on Main Street and uses time, effort, and money on those adventures. He feels really strongly about transforming that downtown. He's also played a big role in the Belleville schools when Belleville was remodeled with the middle high school and that addition on the elementary school as well. He's active in a lot of in the community. He's been on the village board and village committees, and he's volunteered in the Red Cross, the YWCA, and part of the Coaches versus Cancer. Some quotes, including one former board member, Tony. He's literally an angel for Belleville, and what I like most about Tim is that he's not just sitting around waiting for the community to get better. He's an active part of change. And then from Marion, always kind, thoughtful, and thinking about kids, families, and those around. I have to give credit to Tim for withstanding my constant chatter during the volunteering at the community picnic at the food stand. My wife and myself volunteered with Lori and Tim. And by the end of that, we sat down, ate lunch with them, and it was very apparent. These are really special people in our community, and Tim is just a pillar ever since I've been able to learn who he is in a short amount. Those are the 2 candidates the Wildcat Wall of Fame committee presents to you.
All right, thank you for that. Any questions, comments, or discussion from the board? All
I
right.
think we got some real good ones here. Excited for this year's crop.
I had the pleasure of working with Bob on several articles about the programs.
think we're ready to take it up for a vote. The motion is to approve Bob Gentili and Tim Stottleman as the 2025 Wildcat Wall of Fame inductees. All those in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0. Congratulations to our new inductees. Next, discussion and possible action item is the 2025 summer school program. And this is mostly a discussion item, so we'll hear all about it.
Perfect. Yeah, it's here to just share more of an update of how planning has been going. We have 33 teachers on board to teach summer school for us this summer so far. We are going to be offering 35 classes right now. I'm hoping to still grow that. Working on 2 more classes still. Hopefully I can get them staffed. We have 6 support staff joining us right now. Once again, still kind of hopefully going to grow that in the next couple of weeks. With that, we actually have a lot of new classes that were proposed this year. So we'll be sharing some new opportunities for students. So we have a lot of more specific art classes. We have a drawing and coloring class we're going to be offering. We have a paper crafting class, which is like origami, scrapbooking. Then we have a brain games puzzle class that's being proposed. Melissa Knutsen's offering a plants class, so there's going to be growing flowers. I think doing some crafting with flowers. I'm not sure what that's going to look like. Kind of going around the school grounds and looking at nature, maybe doing some gardening and things like that. So we have a lot of new opportunities this summer. Most of these classes are geared towards our upper elementary and middle school students. So I'm hoping to really bring in that population. Kind of by the time they get to that age, those numbers start decreasing. So hopefully with some of these new classes, we'll bring that interest back. Lego Masters is one of our most popular classes. It fills every year. This year, Steve is coming on and helping us extend that opportunity and offering a more advanced Legos class and robotics class for our middle schoolers too. So like, I'm really excited to see what happens with having some of these new classes and that population of kids. So hopefully we can kind of grow our attendance that way by bringing in these new classes. Also this year, with our schedule, we are able to run some of these classes across all 4 blocks of time. So hopefully that will also help with attendance and being able to create more flexibility when students are scheduling and creating their schedules. So with that, like right now, we're really focusing on how to communicate this out. So next week, my goal is to really start releasing this information, getting the information out to the community on dates, when we're going to be running the program, what we're going to be offering, really informing the community about the change with swim lessons, when that's going to be run through community ed, summer school, the difference, and get that information out so that then after spring break, they're ready for registration. We'll focus on registering for swim lessons first and get that information out to the community with how to go about doing that, with the goal to have the registration open for swim lessons on April 16th. Wait a week and then release the registration for summer school the next week on that Wednesday. So the plan, like I said, right now, just really focusing on how to communicate it all, get all that information out. Any questions?
Melissa, I don't know if this is working or not. You mentioned that you were hoping to grow the support staff more for summer school. Have you ever thought about opening that up to high schoolers?
We do. Actually, we do get a lot of high schoolers to come down and help, and they get student service hours. Some of the middle schoolers do that as well.
Okay.
And we kind of start building that staffing, and I look for those volunteers once we get enrollment, and once I kind of see what that looks like. So then I start looking, it's going to be a really full class. So it'd be nice to have some extra hands into that class. So then I see that interest. So, yep.
Are the basketball camps, those are being run after the summer school day?
Yeah.
Have they missed? Okay.
Yep.
How many classes were last year?
So where are we? Kind of with swim lessons counted in that, we were at 39. So my goal, if I get the other 2 up and running, will be right around the same. If not, probably slightly bigger because we're running a few more sections of some of those classes. So like I said, we're running 4 classes of your words. When we've run that in the past, we've only run 2. So we're gonna have some more slots for kids to So hopefully it'll be roughly the same size program without swimming lessons included in it.
I just wanted to say I like the timeline of you're gonna release the catalog with like everything so folks can kind of make their schedules and what's their ideal schedule look like, and then we open swim lessons first to see what you actually get for swim lessons because we know that goes real fast. And then like the rest of summer school, they can kind of adjust schedules and build around it. So I think I hope that makes a big difference for families that are trying to do it all at the same time and pray they get everything that they need in like one fell swoop it in like 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. Yeah. See. Like I said, I'm hoping we can focus on getting communication out on that registration process too, so the change is not as stressful. It will be a new platform for a lot of our elementary families, but hopefully we can get that out.
I would be also interested in, I don't know if we did this last year, but if there are some of the teaching staff that would be interested in sharing with the board, like after summer school is complete, what they liked about it, what they did, maybe what they didn't like. I'd like to hear from them if there's something they really enjoyed about it. One thing I would say, like as a parent that I love seeing is my young son like being in the very low end of the age group in a class and like learning from his older peers and like making friends with those a couple grades above him is really a special thing I think to see because he recognizes second graders in the hallway and it's so exciting, or sixth graders or what have you, or they took Spanish with me or whatnot. So I feel like that's really great. I love that there's a range of grade levels that you can kind of connect with peers at grades above and below yours as well. So it just kind of adds to that community. So I love that personally.
And I have staff fill out a feedback form for me at the end of each summer school season too, so that I can kind of get that information as well and help make those adjustments. Having them come and share some of that information with you guys afterwards would be helpful too.
And if nothing else, I'll make Steve do it.
I will gladly share. Trust me. This is probably less of a question for you, Melissa, but any consideration that at some point those high school strength and training, speed and agility classes, since they're being taught by certified staff, including a PE teacher, that could potentially be a PE credit in the future. I know it would not meet the educational hours right now, but they already meet for I think 29 days. They're not far. They're like 11 hours off from being a PE credit.
Yeah, health and phy-ed are the two courses that both districts will try to leverage as credit earning during the summer. I think that's just probably the next iteration to look towards. And oftentimes it's to try to free up some other opportunities during the school year.
And anecdotally, I will say that those are probably the classes where the students come and go the most. So you might see more consistent attendance if they were actually going to receive credit for potentially.
One thing to add is a wrapping around this is the summer work schedule. And really this is driven by a couple things. One is energy and the second is flexibility at a time when, we have it gets very quiet in here on Friday afternoon. And so putting a summer schedule in place that allows people the opportunity to do during the weeks when summer school is not in place to do 4 10-hour days instead of 5 8-hour days. And then during when summer school is in place, to be able to do 4 9s with a 4 on Friday. And then really setting the expectation that staff are all here during that. So can't come in at 6 a.m. and leave at 10 on that Friday because we really want staff at all hands on deck still when kids are here. We do have the ability with our HVAC system, which is, if you have noticed, is a little bit more steady now, right? And so we have the ability to target. So the kids club, we can turn off air conditioning, but still keep their region, but the things that they're using is still cool. So we do have that ability to do that, and then we resume that normal schedule in August 24th. So at a time of year when, it costs us nothing to be flexible and allow that opportunity, it's a big win. And I experienced this in my last district when I was over at New Glarus, and on a Friday, and I was like, said to Dr. Thayer, where is everybody? They're doing this, and I started asking around. It's pretty common practice at a time of the year when things are do both of those things at the same time, that flexibility plus the I know when I looked at the energy costs, it costs far more to cool than it does to heat. Our body, first of all, we have a lot of kids in here in the wintertime, and they do us a big favor, right? Because they radiate. But when you don't have as many bodies here and keeping a place cool, it costs a lot more. And so really to be able to leverage that opportunity.
And one final, I guess, question just for clarification, because I don't think I saw it up there. The incoming 4K classes are running in August again, right? Like towards the end of summer school. Okay.
Yep, those will run the first week of August, the first 2 weeks in August.
So separate from the rest of the summer school classes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, discussion and possible action item on the agenda is the Dane County School Consortium withdrawal and dissolution.
Yeah, so this has been something that has been sort of.
Are we
Bill-
gonna make some motions on it
sorry.
first? We'll make it first. Thank you first. Go ahead, Beth.
Oh gosh, there's 2 of them here. I will make a motion to approve the school district of Belleville withdrawing from the Dane County School Consortium effective June 30th, 2025, in accordance with applicable bylaws and intergovernmental agreements.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by Meg, and now we can open that up for discussion. Take it away, Jim.
About that, yes. This has been building for the past few months, and I know there's been the oversight and structure of the Dane County School Consortium has been, it's right now the fiscal agent has been on a grow. And when they brought that new administration in this year, both the business office and the superintendent, they looked at that through a different lens, and they started hearing also some of the challenges that have been occurring when you have such a large organization trying to provide this service. So there was an emergency meeting held. There had been several meetings leading up, but finally, and by emergency meeting, it's just that they were like, they had to keep rescheduling, and then they were like, this has to happen now because if a school district is going to leave the consortium, they have to notify the executive director by the end of this month. The straw poll of all the school districts there was really that they're all planning to depart due to a lot of contributing factors ranging from basically local control over those funds. You receive as a district $1,100 for each youth apprentice that completes as a senior. And so the way those funds are utilized and being able to turn those dollars back toward the programming that supports kids, whether it's trying to align them with another employer or trying to give them the coursework that they need currently with their experience. It just seems as time has gone on, the original intent has drifted from its goal. So the recommendation from the group of superintendents is that their boards are all leaning generally toward that direction. Had a chance to speak with someone in the group who was formerly sat in this chair, gave a similar recommendation what they're planning to do. And it's really, so then we pivot and say, okay, so then if that's not in place, what happens? So in the past, the Dane County School Consortium would write their grant, which would go to the South Central organization of the Department of Workforce Development, which would then go to the Department of Workforce Development. This gets rid of that first layer and gets us right to that second layer. But with that second layer can facilitate the fiscal part of it. They can't do some of the groundwork that is done in terms of the course coordination and all that. So that will fall back on us. So that's Mr. Lawshaw, Mrs. Gartley, and myself. I met with Ms. Gartley this afternoon to kind of talk through that. And she said the writing's on the wall with this one. She said she can see where this is going. She sees it as well to be able to, again, have more local control over those funds, be able to support. We're looking at anywhere around 28 to 30 kids next year. And youth apprenticeship with a district this size is phenomenal. And there's no intent to have that drift. So we have some retooling to do on our end about what that will look like in terms of the internal working. But the fiscal agent and being able to facilitate that process between the Department of Workforce Development should still be in place. Seth Lenz is the conduit there, and that and legal representation that I mentioned in here is pretty strong. All the steps are checked so that we don't. Final thing is that there's actually 2 motions. One is to withdraw. The second is the actual dissolution of DSCS has to be done through the executive board, which is superintendents, but only at the authorization of their school, which is why that second motion is.
What is the timeline of reading the fund balance? If they do dissolve, what's the timeline for that being returned?
Many of us ask that same question. I think that's a little bit of the legal piece they have to work through. It'd be very, I think the number is actually even, I think that 5 can be almost replaced with a 6. At least that's what Teresa Gartley had had heard. We're not sure the exact timeline because that has to dissolve, but the hope is sometime in the next fiscal year. You want to say anything else too? or- I don't think so. In my own experience, in my last district, it really rarely do you have this big of a group. Typically, when we were, and again, I was in a district of 11,000 kids. We did our solo. Eventually, we coordinated with the local chamber of commerce, which was a pretty, a natural consortium. This one's pretty unique in terms of a lot of money. I think we're going to try to do multiple pieces. Yeah, and they're also in their infancy, so they're. But I think anytime you're trying to connect with businesses, that's usually the three biggest things in my experience is you need to try to get businesses on board. And Mr. Loshaw, Ms. Gartley have both done a great job of keeping those relationships alive, even if we don't have students. The second thing is really trying to get that coursework in place. And the last piece is that fiscal. And so those first two pieces we'll have to continue to work on, but the coursework and the connections with businesses, and of course, connecting kids to that as well. And it's one of those areas where you always have to have your radar up. For example, I remember once where I was talking with a student, and the students was talking about doing auto body work, and look at him like, are you with apprenticeship? And if they're not, well, let's see if we can connect you with business. And there's so many opportunities in the youth apprenticeship program has grown so much at the state level. So many different opportunities for kids to get that simultaneous credit plus the work experience plus they get paid. They're required to pay, not volunteer. So it's a phenomenal program. Having the percentage of students against our student body.
I make a motion to approve the district
Hang
administrator.
on. Before we start that one, we've got to vote on the first one first. I thought you had another question. Sorry. Didn't mean to mislead you. Okay. If we don't have any other questions or comments, we'll tackle the first motion first. So the motion on the table is to approve the school district of Belleville withdrawing from the Dane County School Consortium effective June 30th, 2025 in accordance with applicable bylaws and intergovernmental agreements. All those in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0. And now I'll entertain a second motion.
I make a motion to approve the district administrator for the school district of Belleville to vote on behalf of the Board of Education to dissolve the Dane County School Consortium effective June 30th, 2025 in accordance with applicable bylaws and intergovernmental agreements.
I'll second.
Motion made by Alan, seconded by Beth. Any other discussion around that one?
That's 2,200.
Yeah,
Hold on.
it's just a typo.
Oh,
Jack's
typo.
notes.
Carried away there.
We said it correctly.
Planning.
Any other questions? We'll take it up for a vote. The motion on the table is to approve the district administrator for the school district of Belleville to vote on behalf of the Board of Education to dissolve the Dane County Schools Consortium effective June 30th, 2025 in accordance with applicable bylaws and intergovernmental agreements. All those in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0. That concludes our discussion and possible action items. Up next, we will move on to discussion items with a Neola policy first reading a couple of first readings for Neola.
Yeah, we try to categorize these. There was the Neola 33.2 update. A lot of language updates from Neola, and those are identified in the first 28 policies. We did pull one policy, which about artificial intelligence, because really we didn't feel the definitions were in place yet. So all the other, so if you'll notice that it doesn't say approving 33.2 because not all of them, we had that one taken out. Then there was some Edgar policies to make sure that our policies are lined up with federal statutes. There's the Title IX. Because of case law, our Title IX policy from August should be rescinded, and we should be reverting back to the one from 2020. Every lawyer, I think, in the country will tell you to do that. There's some technical corrections. There's 17 of them there, which are really just making sure the right statutes, the right punctuation, things like that. And then we had adjusted 4139 because it didn't refer to 4140, and now we had a chance to dig into 4140, which is that termination of support staff policy. So that puts the language back into 4139 and provides that 4140 option that doesn't exist. And finally, there's some FMLA languages. We reviewed our FMLA. There was just some tweaking of language about being able to declare full certainty to the FMLA. And those three policies are all parallel to one another. They're just, work groups. So, a lot to chew on.
I'm sure everyone did their homework and read every single one of these before they came. But if you didn't, we'll vote on
You have
them
an
next
opportunity
time.
for a second reading.
Yes. We'll have a second reading later. Yeah, I think just being on the policy committee, the artificial intelligence piece was definitely definitely one that I think it was a brand new policy that was being proposed, but it essentially just stated that artificial intelligence was not allowed unless explicitly stated by staff, but it didn't really define what that means. And artificial intelligence could mean a Google search, artificially, like searching things on the internet. So I was really looking for some clarification around what exactly that entails and what the intent and scope of that is, so that people aren't getting caught up in that one unexpectedly or unintentionally.
Yes, see the difference? Every once in a while, every once in a while, the deleting, though, would put a line through it and wouldn't make it pink, or I don't know why. We are going to dig into that 5505 next meeting. We're still working on trying to articulate some of those policies. We also, at the next meeting, we dabbled a little bit into the naming of facilities and events. So we're going to be digging into that one as well at the next meeting. And looking. Additionally, I'm meeting with Tim Onsanger tomorrow and digging into New York. Here it comes.
Lots of fun stuff coming. All right. Next item on our discussion. Ask any other questions, comments, or discussion before we move on. All right. Next discussion item is boardmanship, and we've got a couple of notes in here.
Yeah, so last time we talked about WRSA, and at that point it was just give everyone a chance to look at some things, digest, decide at some point. My suggestion typically is you're not in a rush to do this, but I'm interested if the board would like this brought back as an item for action, or if we're interested in just maybe still thinking about it. My suggestion is to maybe join for the next fiscal. Not really trying to jump on right at the end of this year. I think just makes it awkward in terms of budget planning, things like that. But at least if you know that that's something you want to do, that we have that in place. And I'm just looking for a little feedback as to whether or not people had questions, if people had things that they saw they wanted to share with each other, or if they had any thoughts about like that this should maybe go for in the future meeting. Move forward. It's 500 or 550.
I mean, I shared this with you previously, Jim, but I certainly think that we should have this item come up in the future and potentially look at it for fiscal year. I mean, if nothing else, it opens up a few scholarship and recognition opportunities for staff and students, in addition to a conference that's relatively new. They're still a relatively young organization, so it's probably something to continue to monitor. I know Jeff's just their second executive director, but it's still worth probably getting connected to and engaged with. We're one of the few rural districts in Southwest Wisconsin.
You talk a little. I found it is 550 actually. Talk a little bit about the awards piece, because I know oftentimes we will pay for a membership for a coach to be on their state organization, because if they're not, kids don't have the opportunity to earn awards through that. Can you tell through your experience what you?
Yeah, I mean, my experience is pretty limited, but Albany was a member of WRSA, and we had at least 2 projects or staff members recognized at their conference. One of which was, I believe, I hope I'm not making this up, I believe we recognized our building facilities coordinator as like an outstanding support staff member, and he was recognized at their conference, which was just a nice recognition for someone in a field that doesn't maybe find a lot of recognition at times. And then also Albany did, and I think still does, a fairly extensive maple syrup program where they tap trees in the community, boil it, and that project and the ag teacher, who was also the FFA director, were recognized, along with a community member who had provided a lot of volunteer hours to make it happen. And those conferences sometimes just present learning opportunities for districts to see, like, kind of these innovative projects that small communities are pulling together. That, that is probably a project that is very much a small community project, right? That's something to think about. And then, of course, I think there's an inherent challenge for rural districts to have a voice within some of the statewide organizations. We may be large in number, but we are small in some other categories, like numbers, in terms of student enrollment. And I think that in the future, this is an organization that probably could make a stronger case for certain types of categorical aid that gets decided at a statutory level and would potentially impact funding for our district. And I think that that's something that we should be concerned about. Or if there's other things that rural districts have a particularly acute concern about that sometimes don't get, voiced very well when you're in the smaller 30% of districts in the state.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it can definitely come to another board meeting to discuss the possible action and.
The second piece was the culture portion of the annual board development tool. So in January, we did the data-driven decision making, and then we had you all put your feedback in by February. I'll met your deadline. Took the survey, and then I have in there links to the results, but it was hard to see, so I put that one, and there's a spreadsheet version of the data. I think if you pull up, you can scroll it. All right, is everyone able to? So, and then you have your comments in there as well. And I, like last time, I will just write down, and you don't have to do these in this exact order, but what are you noticing, and what do you think might be the reasons that you're seeing what you're seeing, and what areas of success are you wanting to highlight, and where are the SWOT analysis, right? So you're welcome to, last time you kind of got into the discussion, take notes. Last time, some of the things you said too inspired.
Well, I'm glad to see that those who responded all feel like, as a board, we are mutually respectful and supportive and professional towards one another. So I'm very, very pleased that we have set that tone for ourselves and for that. I can add, so some of the, if you're looking at the responses section, I added the second group of responses about the 3 different questions. I think one of the things that I'll just highlight is in question 6, which was asking, we recognize students, teachers, and schools for outstanding performance. I think I put partially achieved there. And essentially what I wanted to share is like recognizing staff is something I don't think we can ever do too much of or enough of. So as a board, I'd like for us to learn more about how staff is recognized currently by administrative teams, and to clarify and to identify if there are ways that the board should be participating in promoting like that culture of recognition. If there's something specific that we could be doing that would feel valuable specifically to our staff, but also true of like our students and administrative team. Like if there's more that we can do to celebrate you, we love you, and we want to show that as well. But yeah, just something to that. If there's something we could improve there, I'd love to hear it from folks.
No, we held off on sheet cakes this time. I believe, and I'm trying to remember the rationale we had on the last meeting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was it. It was a lot of food for conferences. Thank you. Thank you, Kelsey. yeah, we talked at our last district leadership team, and we're making sure to at least every once in a while they look at me like take again the conversation. But really the focus of our conversation is the district highlight portion has been like now suddenly we're like trying to figure out what the best way to utilize that. We're looking, at least in my short time here, looking at that space of time very differently. So like next month we're looking at like potentially the spelling bee, science Olympiad, Fab Lab grant, forensics, bowling. So there's all sorts of things that like I was like writing all these down as they were saying them. So just even having these conversations for us to reflect on, like what does our model look like and are we doing enough? And I think Kelsey and Kyle both bring up a good point. How much you just try to make part of the fabric of what you do versus how many times you stop, talk about something quite explicit. So, and I did hear, just like Sarai, I did hear from others, just how the last assembly at the up here at the school was warmly received just because of the diversity of recognition.
And I'll end with going on to the very last question on here just to call it out, maybe something we can noodle on and see if we can come up with a something moving forward. But the last question is, our community believes the district is effectively governed and makes decisions with the best interest of students in mind. I think that's probably, I mean, it's one of the lower ends of the spectrum. It's kind of hard to tell, but and a little bit of uncertainty potentially with that one as well. So essentially maybe getting like some community feedback. And I think that having things like the task force that we had here to like to bring the community into the schools and kind of engage with them even throughout the referendum talks and stuff like that, and hear directly from folks and kind of get our faces out in the community and naturally in those ways is, I think, going to help that kind of perception and maybe give us a little bit more of a feel for how the community views what we're doing in that area.
I appreciate that. I see the only one that put that I wasn't sure, and that's only because I understand my orbit and their opinion. I didn't feel like I had a confident grasp on the community as a whole and what their opinion was to that question. So I think that would be beneficial to have some mechanism to have that reported to us.
We've even explored too, knowing how challenging from the past repayment of debt conversation was, is doing that, having another opportunity multiple times, right? Not just one event, and so you dig in a little bit, talk about the nuances. So providing multiple opportunities, even though they can be a little, like how many times you can tap into fatigue, but at the same rate, some people get kind of excited. So, yeah, I think we're looking even.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point about the balance of like some folks might get fatigued by being reached out to and asked to be engaged in very frequently, but some people probably conversely feel like they're not being heard enough, or they'd like more opportunity to engage. And outside of making this one meeting that we have every month, those are all opportunities to essentially get in front of the board as well and have their voices heard. So yeah, as long as we continue to have events that we as board members are able to attend and listen in and hear the community's feedback, I think it's all going to be helpful.
I think you put it well when you talked about your orbit, and you're always all of us are trying to expand that orbit.
I wanted to also add that I'm glad that we spread this out rather than focusing it all on one meeting. I think look I know the last meeting. Adverse to that, I'm glad that we're spending more time on this. I think that it's a benefit to check ourselves as well as check in the performance of the district as a whole, and I think that speaks volumes that we're investing this time into this, and I'm glad that we've spread it out to invest the appropriate amount of time into each portion of it. Whomever suggested that part of it, I think I was initially like, let's just get this done the first meeting, but I'm glad that we've spread it out.
There isn't a official timeline one has to take to complete something like this, and I think it's more about that, making sure you get something good out of it rather than just checking it off. Did you want to look forward to which topic is next?
Yeah, I was gonna ask what is next on our thing, and now I can't even find the.
Well, number one was data just driven decision making. Number two, we jumped over the board operations. We went to culture, which is the next one, and then there isn't an official. I mean, this is a decision amongst this group about where they want to go next. So there's back to the board operations. There's planning. There's budgeting. District operations. Community engagement. Policy. Vision. Season's upon us.
Yeah, and looking at the budgeting questions, there are 5 questions on there, and I think they're pretty independent of a referendum. I think there's one that specifically talks about referenda, but the rest are kind of just more general financial things. So I think that if you're comfortable with it, that budgeting could be a good one. Let's do it.
All right. And we'll see how you feel at that point in the meeting. The last 2 times we've gotten there and said, you at least did your assignment.
We'll have our assignment done. We can decide if we want to talk about
I think everyone's in on this next one, right?
That's okay.
Well, and I think the big thing, though, is does it lead to something, right? And so there's some really good information here that I wrote down about even just that recognition. And sometimes we're hard on ourselves at the same time. We should celebrate the work we're doing and even the fact that we're having.
All right. Any other questions, comments, or discussion about the boardmanship topics?
I will say,
Yeah.
Kelsey made a comment, at least from my personal experience with our district, the staff do an amazing job rewarding the students as they go for the little wins and sort of an ongoing basis of making sure that they're recognized. So I want to acknowledge when we are doing it correctly. Thank you so much.
We will move on to future agenda items. What have we got? What have we got coming up?
So we may have a possible donation for a football shed that we were got to work through some exciting conversation. We also potentially, depending on where negotiations with BE goes, we may be talking about a new contract, or we may just be rolling that language into the contract. So regardless, we do, there's a little bit of a shift, but the goal is to, in the past we did letters of intent, followed by contracts after we settle. Regardless if we settle or not, we will do contracts in April, and you'll have to be approving those, including on, and then if we don't settle before that next month, then we just simply just do an amended contract second time. It's really, this falls especially under statute language for teachers, where you have to give the second notice or the final notice by May 15th. And you have to give at least 15 days notice between that and the preliminary notice. And so we just want to make sure we catch all those. And I shared that one time with you all as well. We were going to talk about the strategic plan and some of the proposals we have being brought to us about facilitating that process in November. We decided to table that till after the referendum, just so that our heads could be maybe clear. looking at staffing again as well based on the referendum. The principals are going to be giving some reports, and including we will now add how we recognize staff, and the WRSA potential approval, drafting of the budget, and then of course it's I really hope that in May. Yeah, not at that one. I know when I looked at the business calendar, it had Olson there, but I think that right. I think that has to happen. So it could happen. So could it happen? Okay. Like you said, it could happen during the special. So a week after. And then the board meeting is still the following. No, it's the one after that, 14th. Yeah. But the election fits Sunday. And our board meeting can't be any later, and the election can't be. SWAT that we have ever for. So we have docket. In addition to the 14th, we also tentatively have the special meeting for the 24th. And that is in the event we have to do any. Those non-renewals could come in two different approaches. One is if we do have a failed referendum. But also, remember, we're going to be changing the contract. So if teachers are offered a contract and not sign it, we have to non-renew them to give them the contract. It's a procedural piece. It's not a that's what that second meeting again. There's two things going on there as well. So that we're looking at that.
I'll make a motion to enter into closed session.
Oh, second that motion.
And I'm sorry, we didn't write it the way we normally do it. The part you'd have to read is 4 and then just what's under the.
Okay. I will make a motion. Wait, under.
I'm sorry. We don't.
Got it. Okay, I was in the wrong spot. I make a motion to convene in closed session under Wisconsin Statute 19.851A, deliberating concerning a case which was the subject of a judicial or quasi-judicial trial or hearing before that governmental body. Deliberating expulsion hearing outcome for consideration, including action if appropriate regarding employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of potential employees. Discussion regarding an employee disciplinary issue and employee resignations.
Yes.
Alan Charles. Zoe.
Yes.
Brian Copeland.
Yes.
And Beth.
Yes.
Hearing that, we will adjourn into closed session at 8:18 p.m. Thank you.
I'm gonna wear a shirt next time. Let's go, folks. us already recognizing people.
Passionate already.
No energy right